All right, good afternoon, good evening. Was somebody dancing to the old tune, was it? It's a good tune.
I was getting my jam on.
You getting your jam on, is it?
I was.
Good evening, everyone. I think
Good
we're live. Yeah, we've got 74 watching, which is fantastic. Welcome to Airfix and Chill. And we've got quite a broad panel tonight. Quite a few already in the chat asking. Basically, tonight, we'll go off the bounce. We're going to talk about instructions and instruction manuals that you see inside kits. We're going to have a little chat about who does the best, who does the worst. There's loads who do bad, crappy ones, but you know. And what's missing from instruction manuals? That's a good question to ask. What we think could be missing from instruction manuals. So we'll put it out there. I thought I'd mention quickly because a lot of people are saying it. I did the unboxing and a review of the Bristol Bulldog, and some people were saying there was short shots on the windscreen. Dale Blessing messaged me today because I thought it was short shot as well. I'm not going to lie. I sent him a picture of this windscreen and then realised that if you actually look in the instruction manual, where we to? Let's lose that. The windshield does look like that. So you've got like it's what they call it, James. There's a word for it, isn't there?
Asymmetric.
Asymmetric. That's the word there. Let me just go bigger a minute so you can see. So there it is. It is very much a case of that. And if you want to watch a build, Mac Models has built his, and who else has built? Oh yes, Spencer Pollard's built his as well. Yeah, he's done his bloody quick as well. He called it a quick build. I wouldn't call this a quick build. Do you know what I mean? It's not. But
did he rig it?
I did rig it as well.
That's not a quick build then.
No, he's done an amazing job on it.
There are 4 pages of rigging instructions in that Airfix, which is great.
Yeah,
but that's not quick.
No, that's what I mean.
If you Spencer Pollard, it's a quick build. You know what I mean? That's the difference.
He's done a few in his time, shall we say?
If you allow me to share it, this is it here. This is his beautiful build of this.
I think that's the version I would do. It's pretty striking, that one.
It is. So, does anybody know what the zigzags were on the side? Was it just a marking, or was there a hidden motive for it?
No idea, mate.
No.
There was, and I don't know my British subjects that well, but there was a tornado squadron early on that had an anniversary marking that was somewhat similar, because I was going to do it. It was they painted the top of the wing, like the spar box or whatever on top of the wing, and the fuselage was white, and they had that white or that black line through it. So I'm wondering if it's like a heritage thing, or this is where it started from.
Well, this is 1928. This wasn't it? This was like late. This was before World War II. This is into war, isn't it? But as you can see there, you can see that asymmetrical shield there. So I presume there must be something on the side then. I see. There's the gun on the top, isn't there?
It is to stop the gun causing buffeting.
Buffeting, is it? Yeah. Right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, that's his Bristol Bulldog. Though I think it was absolutely stunning. I thought that was a really, really lovely effort on that. I think Spencer's done a fabulous job on that. So, but yeah, if you want to go and buy one, there's a link below. If you want to go and buy one of these Bristol, don't call it British Bulldog like I did. I don't know where I got that from. Honestly,
from the old playground.
Yeah,
playing British Bulldog.
Was it Davy Boy Smith? Davy Boy Smith.
Bully. Yeah, we call him bullies.
So that's. But going on about you say that, this is why I brought it up tonight. You said there's 4 pages of rigging. Talking to people that do rigging, I don't do rigging. This is why I don't do clipper ships and boats. So I can't be arsed of rigging. But I showed this to some of the fellas at the local model club I go to, and they think that the instructions for the rigging are very, very well presented in this Airfix kit. The fact that, which I thought was quite clever, that they put it so that you follow A to A, but they've got capital A and then small caps A, if you know what I mean. So that's how you do it. So A to A and then B to B, C. I know that's flipped up over, if you know what I mean. So it's not straight on. But I just thought that was a really nice way of doing it. But they're incredible instructions. I'm going to say that out of most instructions, I think Airfix are one of the better instruction, complete instructions you can get for a model set. And prove me wrong. Anyone who does better instructions than Airfix?
I think ICM are up there with giving them a run for their money.
Yeah,
I think with their video bits, they pip them.
That's what we're going to go on to a minute with Clear Prop's new video. I want to show that in a minute. I think that's.
I've not seen that.
You've not seen it?
No.
Should we put it on?
I think.
I'll put it on, Trey. Let's put it on, Trey. I've got to go to present and then share screen, and it's that one there, isn't it? No, it's that one there. I think. I click on share, and then click play. I'll turn the video down as well. So look. Like for the noise. Ready? Absolutely fabulous.
Very well done.
It is.
Although I think that glosses over how difficult those photo etch parts are going to be putting those control sticks. If only it were that easy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Looks great though.
It's amazing. You wait to show off the nacelles in the engine.
Yeah. Parts to go ping.
Yeah.
Those little control clusters. Yeah. Those little photo etch bits. The H-88 is a lovely aircraft too.
Yeah. You're ready. This is the bit that's me. Done up on the tyres. Notice that done up on the tyres. That's good. That bit. Now you just wait in a minute. This is what gets me. It's just me now. Oh, sorry. In a minute, I should say. No rear wheel on the back. It's just
it's just a
skid.
Yeah. This is the bit that gets me now. Look at the engine.
That's not going to go together as smoothly as that shows.
No.
It gives you the option of doing it, showing the engine or without the engine, if you know what I mean.
Looks great.
Crazy. Yeah.
Very cool.
Really good. Really good.
Yeah. So that's how to sell a product, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of marketing and instructions, isn't it? But it leaves no ambiguity as to how a part is supposed to go in or what it's supposed to look like afterwards. Whereas two-dimensional instructions are always going to only be able to show one or the other, or unless you get very complicated.
ICM do the same though, don't they? They do those sort of videos, don't they? Yeah.
And actually, building the Marauder, they really help out. There were a couple of times, I think I used them about 3 times in the build, where it was just like not clear quite from the instructions. I mean, the instructions were clear, but just because it's 3-dimensional, a projection, and it's showing you 2 parts coming together, and then it just shows a piece, and you just think, well, mine doesn't quite look like that. Looking at the video, it shows exactly how it goes. It's like, right, I understand now. You know,
Yeah.
it's great for just removing that little bit of doubt
Yeah.
before you put the glue on.
Which begs the question
Mm.
now, with the onset of 3D printing, and you can print your parts or your aftermarket and you buy it, who's to say that model companies maybe in the future decide to say, to save costs on printing, you go on the website and you can download the instructions yourself, or they do a video and here's the link to the video, and then they just get rid of instructions altogether in their kits. Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'm talking out of certain orifices, but still.
Why not though?
Look at gas patch models.
Mm.
They
Gas
do the
patch.
gas patch models. Yeah, they do a 3D printed tractor for the for towing the Comet, the ME163 Comet.
Annie's does something sort of like that. I mean, you can buy physical products, but you can also buy their 3D products, and then you download their instructions or what have you, and they have pictures, you know, so you can go through and check them out. So that's somewhat related to what Jim was saying. Yeah.
That's a good question. Do videos showing perfect models risk the frustrating modelers if they can't get a model to look as good as the video? Alex mentioned it, glossing over how hard photo etch might be. I totally get that. As I keep saying, when I was writing up my book this week, so I'm using articles from my Substack, and I did an article about there's about photo etch, that we need to have a choice. And to be fair, they've got that wheel, is it the trim wheel on inside the cockpit there? They could have easily printed that in plastic. If I didn't want to use photo etch, they could have easily put that in plastic. And maybe I don't want to use photo etch straps. I still prefer fabric or even a decal instead. And it was, I can't remember, was it 148 scale or it's 172, that Comet, isn't it?
Yeah.
A photo etch, a decal would suffice than using a photo etch, if you know what I mean, for the straps. So, we're getting a bit of a shifty around here. So, yeah, it could be that. It could be that it may make it more frustrating for modelers, but I wouldn't give a clear prop to a beginner anyway, would you?
No.
I mean, if anything, it shows that video might actually put somebody off who was thinking, "Oh, DH88 looks lovely," sees that and thinks, "I've got to do those little fiddly photo etch bits." Not put off in the sense of a negative thing, but they actually look at it and think, maybe not. Maybe that isn't the kit for me at this moment in my modeling journey. I maybe need to develop my skills a bit or something, rather than buying it and being frustrated. So, I mean, it's been very upfront. It's been very clear.
Yeah. And I think ClearProp obviously have an audience in mind. Do you know what I mean? A demographic of the community that are going to go out and buy their kits and do buy their kits. So they're going to aim their marketing at that. They're not selling that in the same bracket as an Airfix quick build kit or starter set, or they're aiming at a completely different audience, aren't they?
£23 for the
actually,
Comet.
That's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
Still on all back order because it's a future release.
You've got to judge how many parts, what's in the box, on the price. I keep saying, sometimes I look at, and I say as an Airfix apologist, so I think Airfix stuff is a bit rich in price compared to some of what you get. Like, that's a Ukrainian company as well. I just seem to find some of the Ukrainian stuff is coming out cheap than what Airfix do.
Yeah.
And does that mean because they're getting their product made in Poland, which is where the tooling's being made? A lot of the plastic is coming out of Poland. Maybe Airfix should bugger off because it costs them a fortune to ship it from India. Would they be better off shipping it and getting it made in Poland?
That's not a bad idea.
If the Germans are making it in Poland, then it says a lot.
Yeah, ICM moved to Poland, right?
Yeah, that's right.
No,
A
not
lot of
ICM. Mini Art.
Oh, Mini Art.
Mini
Thank
Art.
you, Alex.
Yeah.
but
ICM is still in Kiev.
what I'm saying is that a lot of Revel stuff or Revell stuff is being manufactured in Poland.
Yeah.
And they seem to care a bit more. But but that's what I mean. You've got to when this is the trouble when you take it out of sorts where it is. But it's again, it's all about price to some people.
Well, I mean, Polish builders in the UK haven't become popular because they're crap, have they?
Yeah,
they're cost effective and they do a damn good job. So,
one of the days when us English used to go out to Germany, when I do my commentary and joinery, back in the 90s, I was doing my commentary and joinery and shot fitting. I was offered to go over to Germany to do my work over in Germany, and I would have been on back in the day an extra £4 an hour than what I was getting in this country. But they wanted English carpenters and builders out there. Now we've got it the other way around where the youngsters don't want to do this shit, so we end up getting people in to do it, Clear Prop looks like good instructions on, with the video instructions. I've got to say Revell are quite good on their instructions, but do not trust their, there's paint bollocks, mixing paint and everything. Makes you want to crimp, doesn't it? When you're there and you're like 8% of this, 7% of this, and and 90 whatever, 80 something.
I don't think that's actually a bad thing, but that's probably a topic for another time. Tamiya do it as well. The one thing with Revell is the typical thing with Revell is if you buy one of their older kits, I mean new boxed, but an older kit like the Corsair, the 32nd scale Corsair, it will come with the old style instructions, printed on something that looks like brown toilet paper, old format, not great. The new stuff is fantastic, the instructions. But in fact, probably I would say if anything slightly overproduced, it feels like, like marketing have got hold of it a bit too much.
Yeah. But I do like the colour instructions. What was I looking at the other day? And I was thinking about how crap the instructions were. I think it was IBG. I didn't think they were all that, to be honest. Weren't very good instructions. It was, it was a lot of looking at it twice to see if you can get your head around it.
Have you ever seen the instructions for one of them, Moss?
Which one's that one?
Silver Corton.
No.
You might as well take the instructions out and throw them in the bin. Because they tried to tell me to put the jet pipes over the air intake.
Really?
Yeah.
When the instructions are a barrier to completion.
Look at the picture. You can see the jet pipes over the air intakes on the picture. It's just a joke.
I'm thinking of that British fighter plane, Moss, that you got, the one that's supposed to be a Spitfire. It looks like its wings are on backwards.
Yeah, I think me and Moss should do that as a buddy build.
We should all do one.
The British fighter aircraft, and it's got a Spitfire Mark 5B on the picture on the front, but what you get inside the box.
So what if?
Or what if?
What if a blind man had designed the Spitfire?
I mean, instructions.
I think RJ Mitchell would have rolled over in his grave if he'd have seen that kid.
Back on, Luke, what are you saying?
So, instructions. I mean, we all know the companies that perhaps are lacking when it comes to their instructions. So, I'm thinking of my own bench currently. So, there's Zukimura, there's an Airfix, well, two Airfix, and a Tacom. Tacom. May as well throw those in the bin. They're useless.
Yeah.
Absolutely useless. And I've built that, thankfully, down to Jim, who sent me loads of reference pictures of Apaches. I built that kit predominantly from reference pictures, not from the instructions, because they're just useless.
Yeah.
The Airfix ones, very clear, very concise. And one of those is a vintage classic. And still, but for your group build, Moss. And still, they're very. I mean, okay, it's a 72nd piece of armor. Like, it's not. There's nothing groundbreaking going on there, but they're very, very clear. I'm also building a 48 scale Spitfire, the FR from Airfix. They're very, very clear. And then the top end, if you like, the Zukimura. And they're the best of the bunch. However, that comes at a premium price.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think sort of mid-range, if you like. I mean, that Spitfire's what, 23 quid-ish?
Yeah.
For the price of the kit, for how it is, the quality of the instructions, and you're getting cartograph decals. It's pretty good, really. I mean, I've added stuff to it, but like you were saying, Jim, about PDF, and so I've put a lot of Kits World stuff in the cockpit of that. Well, Kits World sends you the stuff, and then they say, if you want to know how to use it, visit the website, download the PDF.
Yeah.
There's no instructions in that Kits World stuff. You go to their website, and it shows you placement and everything else. So, yeah.
And I think what you said before, Luke, about, who the kid is aimed at is a big part of that, right? Because you wouldn't expect a budding 15-year-old who's into history and stuff to pick up one of those kits, but they'll pick up an Airfix kit, and be
or the vintage classic, for example, that I'm doing for Moss's group build. That's less than a tenner, and the instructions are good and the decals are good, and okay, it's a vintage classic, so the molding's a bit shoddy in places and takes a bit of work. But you don't need to do that. If you just want to put it together, then you can, and the instructions will guide you pretty well.
I think one of the worst offenders in terms of instructions that haven't really moved on for me are some of the Japanese companies like Hasegawa and Fujimi. It's like who have still very traditional fold out instructions. You end up with this long roll of paper, where you're trying to flip backwards and forwards from. They haven't gone to booklet format, all black and white, quite cramped. And you just think, this is what I would have expected in the 80s or 90s, but not kind of really now. And it's not like they're cheap. It's not like they are, 23 quid for the equivalent. Yeah. It's like 35, 40, and you think, well, this kit's been around for a while. What am I actually paying that extra premium for?
Yeah. I mean, Dragon have always been synonymous with bad instructions. That they'll show you in step 3 to attach this part, and then in step 5 that part's not there, and you've got to drill a hole. Do you know what I mean? They've always been bad at that or had a reputation. But recently, I built their 72nd scale Bushmaster, and the instructions are fantastic. So, but that's a newer kit. It's a newer. So whether they've got someone else doing their instructions,
Dragon are going to come on a lot.
Moss, the Das Work instructions, they're essentially a subsidiary or a sister company or whatever you want to call it of Tacom.
See, I've never owned a Das Work kit. They've never, mind you, I can't say I've never appealed to me. That bolt car thing, that did appeal to me. I quite like that. I'm gonna have a look at that when it's but yeah, going back, I get people say Wing Nut Wings were the ultimate, but then where's that company now? Sometimes you think they put too much gaff in the instructions and on everything else. But like you say of Airfix, like the starter sets of Airfix, the new ones, they tell you where to put the bloody glue, and that's a big thing, really, to where to put the glue. Where even Tony cut these little injection remove mark off, things like that. It tells you what to do. So as I said, I'm going through instructions. Like I'm just looking at some of the kits I've got now, and testers, they were crap, But I think what I think's missing from instructions is naming the parts. Because I'm embarrassed sometimes. I'm looking at something going, I'm not a pilot, right? I just love planes. I like I like building them. There's a lot of things in the cockpit, and what's on the outside I don't know. It would be nice if they name the parts as well. Well, B1 to see, but like put next to B1 or something, that is a pitot tube or something like that. It's just what I mean. So you get an education, which is what Airfix used to have an exploded view, then you get a script of how to put it together. And sometimes I feel that maybe a script would be adequate, these educate you. And also, if you do know what the part is, sometimes you won't need to see the instruction because oh, that part would definitely have to go there. If you know what I mean, it wouldn't be anywhere else on that in that cockpit, but it would be there.
Well,
so,
those old style instructions that you're on about at Airfix are still being churned out for model railway kits.
Yeah, that's a fair shout.
So
some of the Revel car kits used to have that. I don't know if they're new or old or what, but and it seemed hit or miss. But they would tell you in the instructions what the part was, the distributor, the alternator, that kind of thing. So, but man, I have to agree with you, Moss. I think the new Airfix instructions are, right up there, if not sort of the best for me right now. In the top 3 for sure. I think the Tamiya instructions have always been, pretty good. I totally agree, with the TACOM. I did that Big Bertha and they were almost useless. And then, that's what I was going to add. Yeah. So I did the Copper State models and they have a sort of a wings-ish manual, the coloring. So they don't tell you how to paint certain parts as you're building it. They only give you the color guide at the very end of that subassembly. So you have to kind of constantly cross-reference that with your build. But man, those new Airfix instructions I have no complaints. I think they're wonderful. Yeah.
I think the starter set instructions, I'd like to see more of what they do there in their general kit instructions. Not necessarily where to put the cement, but I mean, they do, I think on the F-35, they show you where on the sprue the part is.
Yeah.
Which is it's just, if you're doing things, well, if you're doing a 1 hour speed challenge build, it's really useful.
Yeah.
But if you're just doing it normally, it's useful as well, rather than doing something crazy. But just, it's, again, that modeling mindset. A lot of the stuff that the designers at Airfix have been doing in recent years have been thinking about things as a modeler rather than just as a producer. Whereas, as Luke and John said, TACOM and stuff have just like, they might as well go back to the old 1970s just exploded diagram where you have all of the pieces just, with arrows pointing into a completed model, because they don't really help.
Most Chinese brands instructions are bad. Sorry, saying bad now. Moz, remember, someone new to modeling may find instructions confusing. I do understand that, but remember, I got back into the hobby 2004, 2005, and building Airfix kits, they've not really swayed away from this sort of approach, have they? I think, just after the acquisition, I think, obviously they've refined it, but if you go back to a 2006, they're pretty size. So it's like learning somebody's lingo. Do you know what I mean? And I think when you start looking at Airfix instructions, you get into that mentality of how to build an Airfix kit. Tamiya is the same. You look at a Tamiya instruction, just slightly different because you're used to how they think. The difference between now and then is that you're getting more of what a modeler would do in a kit from Airfix. For instance, you've got Pramjit creating these little intricacies in the way he's tooled something, so that as he, something to help you to build. For instance, the little tabs on the Gannet. They numbered the tabs, didn't they? So if you take them off the sprue, the number will be still there. Use those tabs on your clips, so then you spray them. Then when you're about to fit the part, you cut off that tab. It was ingenious. The fact that he put masks in on the Mosquito, so you could spray it up, remove those masks, so you don't ruin what's inside the. That's what we're seeing more of, and you see it in the instruction as well. It tells you clearly, use this part here for a mask. I'm trying to think of other things. Oh, and also I do find Airfix very, very good on keeping the sprues in and the parts on a sprue in order as you go. And so you're not going back to frame A to frame D frame seat. You know, you're not backwards and forwards, which unfortunately you do get a lot of that with Tamiya, don't you? You do seem to jump from frame to frame. So
you do with mini art as well.
Mini art as well as another one. You know,
that's probably the norm for most manufacturers, jumping all over the place. Because I just finished that mini base C flanker, and oh my gosh, it was another nightmare of back and forth, and tiny little parts. And it was, and of course you're doing one little sub assembly, and you're dealing with 5 to 6 different frets. It's just like put them all together on one, you know.
One of our I'm not going to say your name, but when I was a kid, I learned a lot of car parts due to building the kits with the parts named. I also learned what they were called in English, as that is not my native language.
Yeah.
Thingamy Bob. You learned the word thingamy Bob.
Well, as Nigel would say, he learnt to read to an advanced level by reading the instructions from the Airfix kits.
Yeah.
And it is part of our hobby, right? Is learning. I mean, one of the bits, I've said it before, I'm sure a lot of you will agree, you know, researching what I'm building and the actual subject that I'm going to be doing, if it's a specific subject as well, it's a big part of it for me. You know, I learn so much doing it, and I feel better for it. I think if the instructions can give you some of that as well, you know, more the merrier. Because if I'm coming to a car build, for instance, probably my least comfort zone build, I don't know what half those parts are. You know, it's just like carburetor. Like, do modern cars have carburetors now? They may be in the I don't know.
It is true. And I mean, I've said this for years now. So I was in the military for a long time.
No.
I was up close and personal with a lot of particularly sort of modern armor type stuff. Now, I had no idea at that point in time. I wasn't an engineer or a mechanic or anything like that, but I had no idea at that time that years later I'd be doing this. One of my biggest regrets is not taking thousands of reference pictures.
Yeah.
Because it's reference pictures that you just wouldn't get anywhere else, you know. But I've learned way more about that hardware, about those vehicles since leaving. Because at that time I didn't need to know.
No.
You know, whereas now if I'm building, I don't know, a Jackal or a Wimmick Land Rover, well, I'm going to research that from an engineering point of view, if you like, before or as I'm doing the kits. Whereas then, even though I was driving these things and operating on these things, I had no idea how they worked because that wasn't my job. So you do learn so much if you take the time, and we've got the biggest resource that mankind has ever had, really, with the internet. If you look hard enough, you will find that information. You know,
I've just got to say the legacy of Airfix was that the original creator of Airfix insisted on a history lesson before you started building, and that's why at the front of every single Airfix instruction manual is cut the paragraphs on the history of the particular model that you're building. You know, see, it's like the Bristol Jupiter engine. You will start, once you start reading this, your memory will start coming back that there's other planes that have Jupiter engines in, because that's what Bristol did, wasn't it? You know, there was another one. Is it Frank Barnwell? Was Barnwell the one who did the engine, or was he the designer of the plane? I can't remember now. But yeah, if you go to Bristol Museum where they got the Concorde, it's crap when it comes to anything of Bristol there. Mostly model kits but lots of engines and stuff, you know, models of engines. And I learned quite a bit going around there. That, you know, that Jupiter engine was incredible. All the time in every it's a bit. But you get to learn these things, and you know, it's good. So when you read the instructions, actually read the history of what you're building. But then again, you tend to build something because you know the history of the plane as well. So, but
did you know the Germans used the Jupiter engine as well, Moss?
The Germans did.
It was in the Ju-52.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they sold it, didn't they? They sold the rights to build it as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Bristol did a lot of sleeve valved engines, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because the bow
Even-
fighter sleeve
Even in
valve.
the 50s, the Super Freighter was a sleeve valve engine.
Yeah.
Was it?
So they called it the Whispering Death, didn't they? Because its engines were very quiet.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It was a good idea.
I thought it was quite good. The thing I like about most modern instructions is that they show you which parts you are not going to use. You don't get that to the end of the build one if you've missed something. Yeah.
I do appreciate that as well. When they'll gray them out or something like that and say, you don't need this.
Well, and to be fair to the manufacturers, that sometimes they'll do multiple versions and they'll give you everything in one, so you don't want to be slapping the wrong thing on the wrong version of whatever one you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
I was about to say that actually, Jim, because when Revell released the 32nd scale Mark II Spitfire, there were parts in it to build the Mark 9.
Yeah, it was so close, though, wasn't it? The 2 and the 9, wasn't it? Really?
Well, the early 9s actually used the same airframe.
Yeah.
Just had elongated front ends.
Well, it's like the Seafire kit as well. It's basically the Spitfire. What is it? 21, I think, something like that. With
22 and 24.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you mentioned there, Moss, though, is that thinking about it more model-minded. Because one of the things that, having just done a couple of commissions of older kits, like 70s kits, one of the things that you find now is Airfix build stuff in little sub-assemblies.
Yeah.
So you can build them.
Actually, that's on my notes here, sub-assembly.
And it makes logical sense, right? And you don't have to keep going. Older kits, so the Tamiya 1/12 scale Lotus 49, right? It builds up into a beautiful model after a lot of bloody work. But it has you do things like put the driver into the monocoque. It's like step 2 or 3, right? And then close it up. But you've got to paint that monocoque in like racing, shiny livery without getting the driver. And you've got to paint the driver before putting it in, obviously, because you can't paint it while he's it. And it's a nightmare. If you were to do it as per the instructions, the order that they have you doing, you would be knocking bits of chrome off like midway through the instructions and stuff. So I think that's a big way that instructions have changed, is that now they seem, or the good manufacturers, let's say, and Airfix are definitely one of those, that have you build it in a more logical order, rather than like, putting the undercarriage on in stage 2, that when you've got these bits dangling all the way through the build that you can knock off, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They do a trump. That's a trumpeter habit. Putting the instruction, the undercarriage on in stage 2.
But that's the thing, I think that was the blip in Airfix's mentality with sub-assemblies, when you had to build the Wildcat or the Martlet, and you had to do it. You had to decide right the way at the beginning of the build whether you have it wheels up or wheels down. Because if you think you could put the wheels on after, undercarriage out, you can't. The way they designed it, because it was all involved with the engine, wasn't it? And then in the cockpit, that was whoever thought of that had a brain fart. I tell you, I still think about halfway through the build whether to do the undercarriage, or sometimes, like when I see 1/44 scale commercial planes, I'm like, I ain't going to bother. That undercarriage is bollocks. So I'm never going to. That's not going to hold. And they don't, because 1/44 is tiny. I'd rather have it in flight. And I see a lot of Concords at scale model worlds, on scale model shows, that are in flight because the Revell undercarriage is crap. So
I did mine in flight for exactly that a couple of reasons, but one of them was, I don't want to deal with that undercarriage. It's it's bad, and there's no undercarriage bay. It's just like a door that fits flush with the fuselage. And you think, that looks garbage. So.
Just an interesting thing, Moss. If you look at Airfix model ships, 1/600 scale model ships, when they were originally released, they tended to be built in exactly the numerical order. But later, I think around about box typing 6 or 7, they started changing the order in which they wanted you to build the kit, because they knew it would be easier to make it that way. And Ishmael Belfast is an ideal example of that. because you built about 20 different sub-assemblies before you put the whole together.
Yeah.
Whereas when I first bought HMS Belfast in 1975, you built it numerically.
Yeah.
It was a lot harder, but I think Airfix recognised the fact that, you know, we've got to change the way modelers are building these kits to make it easier for newcomers and whatnot.
I don't think it's a case of that though, John. Of that, I get what you're saying from numerically, but it's also that with that anal about getting the paint down as quickly as we can, because we're going to lose the opportunity of painting stuff.
Yeah.
So we actually look at building. You know, what's the first thing we always do on a plane? Is the cockpit, isn't it? So and that's one thing that you paint up, and as soon as that all painted up and it gets inside that fuselage and closes, what's the first thing you do? You whack as much foam and tape on it to protect it, you know, because you've done it. But unless you know this, you could be, because I remember, you know, giving a kit to somebody, and they just built it without any paint. They didn't realise that the little colour code where you've got to paint these bits first. It's not a case of just gluing it all together, then paint after, because you can't get to some of these places.
No.
And that's what it's all about, really, I think. And I think the same with that, you know, you're doing those sub-assemblies, then doing the hull. Maybe that's the better way to do it, because you want to paint those bits up first and then do the hull.
Yeah, but I think Airfix actually recognised that fact, so they changed the instructions to enable you to do it like that.
Yeah.
And it happened around about 1982. That's when the instructions completely changed.
Yeah. What did Darryl Masters write? Sorry, I've just seen what you wrote there. But I mean, I still change the build order for one reason or another. E.g., getting all parts will be the same color. Yeah, I do that. But and I think a lot of the instruction, I think that's a good shout. You know, you talk to some of the scale the engineers or the designers at Airfix, and they just build it clean. And I think that, you know, I remember them. I remember, I can't know which designer it was. The designer of the Spitfire, Chris, who said, actually, well, I'm in a very, very interesting job where I don't give anyone a finished product.
That's right.
You know, the scale modelers are the ones who finish it, and it's a joy to see what they come up with this canvas that, you know, they've given. And it was so profound when I read that. I thought, you're absolutely right. He has no control of, you know, the box, the instructions. Really, he has a vague input. The chap who designs the instructions he actually builds them as he goes along, then does the instructions. But, you know, the fact is that he's basically giving us a canvas, and it's up to us then. And I think that he now realizes on how they put things together with, you know, the sub assemblies. I think was more. Having sub-assemblies in kits is far, far more important than the outbreak, all this 3D print and everything, because that is really intricate. And to have sub-assemblies like with the what's it called, the Westland Sea King, all little sub-assemblies. And I think the best thing is that there's a sub-assembly. You want to do a different mark. It's got a difference inside. You can create another plastic sprue, which is a different sub-assembly, but will still fit in that area, if you know what I mean. So, it's, you know.
I think that what Darryl is saying as well depends on the modeler. So I'll build a model, you know, exactly the same model. If you gave it to all of us here, we would all build it slightly differently.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee that, you know, the order in which we do things, I very rarely go step by step by step. You know, as I said, I think kits have improved to the point where I follow that general flow much more closely than I used to. But again, I'll look at, okay, what's interior green in this kit? You know, what can I do in one spraying session? What do I have to do before I can paint this? You know, can I actually build, you know, the landing gear separately so I can spray those, do those, and then attach them after the model's built and painted? You know, so I'll build a little bit out of sequence. You can see that in some of my build videos, like the Spitfire. You know, it's like I'll leave this bit because actually I want to get this and this bit done, which are all the same, and then I'll bring that in later so it doesn't get broken off or whatever. But you, Moss, might build it in a completely different way. Luke might build it again different way. John, etc. So I think there are advisory, good advice, because they come from the people who made the kit. But sometimes we'll want to do things a little bit differently to suit our style.
They're not
I know
instructions.
somebody. Well,
They're not instructions. They're suggestions.
yeah. Saying that, I know
Like the
somebody.
speed limit, right, Jim?
What's that?
Like the speed limit. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we had a joke when I worked out at the airport, all these signs and everything, and I had one of my backseaters as I'm driving along. He goes, don't worry about, you don't have to come to a stop here. It's just a suggestion, 47's going by. I don't want to run a stop sign,
That's right.
You're the one that's going to get the ticket.
Yeah. These units, they say that you can't drink. This is a suggestion. This is a suggestion.
Yeah, it's just around about that. It's fine.
Give it an hour, you would have lost half those units anyway. Well, I know somebody who will spray as much as he can on the sprue. He'll read through the instructions, and as he goes through the instructions, he'll pick up the sprue and go, right, that.
Tell us, Moss. Tell us the name of the heretic. We'll burn them.
No, he's not on you.
Funny you say that, but if I'm building an Airfix ship or like a 600 scale or 400 scale ship, I will paint small parts on the sprue before I even cut them off.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. No, he'll spray up. He goes round, he goes, yeah, that bit's there, that there, that there, that there. And then when he puts it together and he has little marks for the cement spindle, he's had to, sand it off to make it fit. He said it's nothing. Just spray over it. It's already sprayed anyway. And to be fair, especially with lacquers and stuff, it blends in so easily. It does it, with paints for scale modeling, paint is very forgiving, really.
Yeah.
At times if you put, a decal's gone wrong or something, you pull it off to put a fresh decal on and run over that bit with that little bit of, get this, as long as the paint's mixed properly, if you know what I mean, go over it. You can't tell you've sprayed 2 or 3 layers sometimes. So, yeah. And Annette says, I spray primer all the sprues. I know somebody who does that as well, just sprays all the sprues in primer.
I do it selectively. I will. So same as Annette. So if it's a part that's going to be just a lot easier to prime on the sprue, and then later on I can take it off the sprue and paint it or whatever. But it's just okay. I can leave this on right now, especially where the tabs or the gates are located. Yeah, if they're located in a spot that's not going to be seen, so along an edge, right, like a glue edge. It's okay. But I'm selective about it.
Yeah,
but it's not faux pas.
Yeah, that's right. I always look at
what allows you to be selective is experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because over the years you've developed the experience and the knowledge to know that yes, I can prime this on the sprue or I can paint this on the sprue, because actually when I cut it away, the bit that isn't painted is never going to be seen. It's a glue surface or whatever. But for a newer modeler,
that's true.
That's a big ask for them to be able to decide which bits they can paint on the sprue, which bits they can't, which bits they're going to have to repaint when they're on the model. So it's experience, isn't it? And that's like everything we do. Everything we do. No one, I don't know anyone, has picked up their first model kit and produced something amazing. It's just not. It's a journey.
It doesn't happen.
And we're always learning. We're always finding out new stuff. And for me, that's the one of the benefits of the hobby, because you'll never know everything ever. You're always learning, always, and you'll make more mistakes than you get things right. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you don't make mistakes, you won't learn anything.
Exactly.
That's what I keep telling
never made a mistake, never learn anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to agree with most of what a lot of comments tonight have been really interesting. Julian Horst says one thing I think Airfix could do is to add to the advice sheet to starter sets is step 0, read the instructions in full. I thought they did on the top. I thought it does say that on the top of the instructions, but I have been asked when we were last up there for the Creator Day. The chap who does these the starter set, you know, the tips sheet you're on about. He asked us about then what we could have added. There was a few suggestions that were added then as well. I still think that you know, the bit where he says mix the paint thoroughly, I think they should have put in there, add 50% water to the paint straight away, you know, and
That's
do
a starting point. Yeah.
2 or 3 coats. That, you know, just mixing the paint means nothing, because I can assure you, you mix that red and that matchstick or that stick will just stay upright. You do the black, and it'll go, you know, because red's got a lot of pigment in it, so it's a lot thicker.
Is that
So
the starter set paints?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first step should be take starter paints, put in bin, buy proper paints.
Yeah, go buy some new paint. That's your first thing.
You've learned a valuable lesson.
I do have it here, the actual. Here you go. Got one here. Oh, shelf's going to fall down in a minute. Here it is. It's the sheet here. I think in this one, isn't it?
I opened a starter set the other day, boss, and there's to get the RAF Sky out of it for video testing things. It was as hard as rock.
Hard as rock. Yeah.
It was complete. There was about that much in the bottom. It was like about a quarter of the thing. It was just solid.
Yeah. So riddle me this one. And we're talking about instructions and sequences and things like that. And I think what's been lost a lot on newer modelers and kids getting into this hobby, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about the instant gratification and then following the instructions perfectly. I think there's something to be said for looking at instructions, treating them as suggestions, thinking about what you're about ready to do, and build it in your mind first. Use the spatial concepts, and the actual, how is this going to go together? What is the assembly process that I need to do, the painting process that I need to do? How's it all going to come together? You do all this in your mind, you get your mind working, and it's not just simply going from A to Z, 1 to whatever number infinity, you know, and you got to follow it exactly. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt when you do like the kit that I just did, and you get all the way through and you're like, man, I wish they would have told me to do this over here. Now that I have that experience and now I've got a book full of notes, and granted, that's not a beginner kit, but I think it goes back to, yeah, there are really more suggestions, especially for newer modelers. But then the flip side of that is, do we want to get into super detail with beginner modelers, so to give them every tool that they need to hook them in, to bring them in, to say, hey, they showed me every little step, you know, on this journey of building this model. Long-winded pontification, I guess you could say, but it's you know, which way do you go? Do you oversimplify it for these guys to hook them in, or do you know, do it the hard way like we all grew up on, you know, figure it out for yourself? You know, you get thrown in the pool to learn how to swim and you better figure it out. I don't know.
Oh, go on, Luke, carry on.
I think it's a difficult balance. It's a real difficult balance, because it's no secret that the hobby is up against it to attract newer, younger modelers, because there's so much out there now that perhaps I didn't do it as a kid, but I can think back to when I was a kid. We didn't have the instant gratification hobbies that they do now. It just didn't exist, or it was very much in its infancy. So it's finding that balance of drawing them in and making something fairly instantaneous, but at the same time trying to teach and impart that cerebral modeling, you know, and actually figuring out a process, because that's 80% of what we do, isn't it? 80% of stuff happens up here, and then hopefully that translates to what your hands do on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's why I'm such a crap modeler.
but it is. I mean, I think about modeling all the time, how to solve a problem, how I'm going to create a paint effect, how I'm going to do all the time. But it's not. I'm not at the bench. Do you know what I mean? It's all the time. I'm walking the dog, or I'm in Tesco's or wherever, and you're constantly thinking. So it's finding that balance. And I think I like Warhammer kits. I think they're great. They're well engineered. They're fairly easy to construct. The sort of mainstream Warhammer stuff, and it is fairly instantaneous gratification. And I think, unfortunately, there is a cost implication. They're not the cheapest. But Bandai, very similar. I just put together the Meng June Spice Harvester. Like that thing I had built in less than an hour, you know, with no glue. I mean, it's painted now and I need to work on a base.
But you know what, Luke? The thing about Warhammer and all this, you know, wargaming sort of, there is no accuracy needed, though, is it? That, you know, you can make it up as you go along.
No, but is the new kid, the kid that's new to the hobby, are they bothered about the accuracy on a Spitfire cockpit like I am? No, they're not. They're not. And that's why the quick builds, you know, Airfix quick builds, classic example. You know, are they the most accurate? Absolutely not. But they serve a purpose, don't they? And it's that balance, you know.
I'm just looking at the before you start guide, and you're right. It doesn't say anywhere to read the instructions first. But then again, this is a tip sheet, and it does actually say, you know, on instructions that you should read the instructions first, surely, on this.
Well, I do think the new Airfix starter instructions are almost what Jim was talking about there, that kind of step by step, because as you said, you know, they tell you even where to put the glue, so you almost don't have to read them in full before going in.
Like on the top here, it's clearly so. I'll just get it bigger so you can see. These are starter set instructions on the top there. Practice assembling each part whilst looking at the drawings in each step before gluing parts together. You know, as you follow the instructions to build this model, you will see symbols. So, you know, it's laying it all out for you completely. I don't like the missing of, you know, the way they do the starter sets. I know it's to save money, but there is no outer tree for the outer sprue. It's like old 1960s tooling, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, and that outer frame is there for a reason. It protects the parts.
Yeah. But there you go. That's the before you start guide, and you know, it's telling you here. But like it says here, it says stir the paint thoroughly. You know, you need to add water to the paint, because you know that pot there, it screams at you Humbrol starter set paint pot. You know. And the fact they're making you stir it anti-clockwise is a big thing as well. So maybe that's the issue. We've not been stirring it the right way. You know what I mean? We've been all stirring it clockwise. You know, information about the decals, you know, hold them in water for, well, not be 20, it's about more than 20, 30 seconds more like. You know, don't use too much glue. You know, there's some bits there. Test pit bar, use a fine edge to clean up, you know. So yeah, it says use clippers to cut the parts. There's no mention of knives here, by the way, if you notice. But you know, most of us use knives anyway, don't we? So for the decals and bits and pieces. But yeah, it does need a little bit more refinement. And we were asked about it while out there. They haven't changed it. This has been the same now for 5 years, because they brought this out with the Spitfire Mark V starter set. This was the first one. Then they put that in with the tanks. It could be better if they do it with a tank as well, like, you know, tips on how to get the turret right and stuff like that. I don't know. It's
I tell you one area, Moss, of instructions that I think almost all companies are bad at, and it just came up because you were mentioning paints there, is paint references, because they all just reference, almost all, Italeri actually stand out in that they do reference FS numbers, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But almost everybody else is just referencing their own paint range.
But that's...
Which I get why they're trying to force people into doing it, but I don't think it works. And it's a pain in the ass. I would, if all manufacturers did, like, this is the FS number and we provide it as, Humbrol 165 or something.
Right.
I think that would be an ideal scenario, right? You don't have to promote anybody else, although some companies do. There's several manufacturers, but just to put a standard, reference, and then what you supply is it,
Yeah. As I said, one of the arguments I've had with, not an argument, I was talking to Jason at Outlaw Paints. He's got maroon, the name maroon, across 4 different things. He's got a military maroon, he's got a railway maroon, he's got a United States maroon and a UK maroon. So it's something that can be quite confusing, and it's very slightly different, and I get why he's done it, because he will mix that paint to an FS number. That's what he does. And then with that FS number, that you can have 8 or 9 different FS numbers, and they all say olive drab. That's a problem you've got, isn't it?
Right.
You've got, and this is why he went down the route of US, UK. There's a US olive drab, a UK olive drab, even a German olive drab. You got, so I get why he's done it, but the differences are that minimal. But you're going to have those who are going to be anal and want that particular one. You got dark drab, light base.
That's the thing. That's the thing, and that's the difference between types of modeler.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I was going to get up, that's like that one there, because some of the models went down the ammo MIG route. Okay, they're using an olive drab light base, they've called it. Not, but if you look up olive drab light base, no one else has got that name. Very few got that name, olive drab. Everyone just says either US, US olive drab. If you had the FS number, it could be more accurate for us if we had the FS numbers. Yeah. And I think you're right. But David, it's all about marketing, isn't it? And that's the problem. They're trying to keep you in house. That's why they.
For example, if you want to do, I don't know, panel fade in and all that sort of stuff using MIG olive drab, right? Yeah. They're the paints you're going to need, as recommended by MIG.
That's all of them, is it?
That they're the olive drab colours from MIG. Wow. So there's 5 there.
And what
to do one colour. Hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, to do olive drab. Yeah. There's 5 different paints. So but you could also use olive drab base and leave it at that. Yeah. So it's all dependent on the effect you're trying to achieve, the modeler.
Well, you could put in like olive
drab. The dog eating the one I've dropped.
If you could do an olive drab light, and by the time you finish weathering it, it's darker than olive drab dark.
If you're going to weather it.
If you're going to weather it, that's the problem, isn't it?
So it's all relative, isn't it? It's all relative, and that as to what John was saying earlier, it's experience.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's like anything in life, whether it be this, work, whatever. We're not at the stage yet, so I'm sure it'll come in years to come. Probably not in my lifetime, where we can put a microchip in someone's brain, and all of a sudden they've got 25 years experience.
It'll be like the Matrix, mate.
Yeah, exactly. But we're not there yet, are we? And
so what you're saying,
time and doing it, that gives you that experience.
Are you saying that it doesn't matter what shade of olive drab you put on the base panel if you're going to weather it, because you're not going to see the original color, are you?
But your final color will always be different, right?
Yeah. But it should be different on every single kit, because you'll apply different weathering in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the original base olive drab, it could be a shade lighter.
Yeah. So what we're talking about with instruction,
it's the same with primers, mate. You put a dark primer down, it's going to change the surface color, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
But what we're talking about with instructions, right? Because I, like a lot of you, we've getting long in the tooth. Got a bit of experience, and I can't think of the last time I actually took the kit's recommendations about colors. Right?
Yeah.
I don't do that, but a newcomer to the hobby does, right? And they're coming along, and they want to know what colors. I get a lot of people in the shop, who come and they've got a list of colors. I'm building this kit. These are all the things that, and I have to say, you don't need. Yeah. They've got black, matte black, they've got gloss black, they've got semi-gloss black. And I'm just like, I can sell you 3 blacks if you want, but they're all black. You know, you can also achieve this if you buy this. You know, buy all the flat colors and buy this gloss. Then you'll achieve the same, and you'll save yourself a tenner. You know, I'm actually doing a video on it right now. I was editing it earlier, but it's like paint by numbers, right? That's what model kit manufacturers give us. They give us paint by numbers. And I don't think that's, I think, as Luke said, experience elevates you above that. We don't do that because we don't need to. In the same way, an artist wouldn't paint a picture by buying a paint by numbers kit and then, you know, looking where they need to put number 11 and number 2. And, you know, they would, even if they were to do that, they would blend between the colors, they would freehand or do all that sort of stuff. So I think when you're trying to give people a starting point, you know, and Revell's Dark Earth will be different from Humbrol's, and because they never have the exact color, they'll have whatever's closest. Ironically, in the example that I'm using, Revell do have the exact colors, and they don't actually mix. Tamiya don't, and they do. It's weird, but 4 different manufacturers will give you 4 different colors. It's just like so. How is that helping somebody get into the hobby? That is pure marketing, you know, of the paints. It's not really the modeling part. So again, that's why I'd love to see. And again, I'm not one for there is one olive drab or there is one sky, especially Aria Sky, which was, you know, even at the time was as varied as they come. But somebody has to have some sort of baseline starting point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing. And again, then it's education, it's experience, it's doing the research. It's because otherwise they're going to do this kit and, you know, they're going to use Humbrol 91 and then they look at it and then they look at a picture that they've seen of a Spitfire and think, well, that doesn't look right somehow. It looks like the aircraft, but the colors are off. And you can see that in quite a few starter kits or, you know, kits that manufacturers have put and done with their own colors. And you think, that's just, you know, and is that the right kind of entry to the hobby? You know,
I totally agree.
I mean, I guess it would take a lot of money, a lot of work. But if someone could potentially, you know, create some sort of website with a starting point for people, you know, that would be such an invaluable resource rather than, like you say, Alex, people come in your shop and they've got the list of paints that the manufacturer of that particular kit has suggested that they need to use, and it's extensive, but it's a marketing tool for their brand a lot of the time.
And they won't get that. Well, I mean, you know, from Warhammer, right? You see the heavy metal painted Space Marine, and it says all these colors. Heavy metal haven't used those paints to create that paint scheme in the way, and you can follow their instructions directly. And it won't look like that Space Marine. No, it's just like because they haven't used that. So it is completely a marketing tool.
I mean, at the risk of being served a legal notice by Games Workshop. So on most Warhammer kits, you will get an image, box art image of the completed kit.
Which always looks fantastic.
Which always looks phenomenal because it's painted by their studio painting team. But Warhammer do never recommend an airbrush, ever. It's all brush painted, according to them. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. They've used an airbrush. You know, they have, but they will never, because they don't sell airbrushes and they don't sell airbrush. Well, they sort of sell airbrush ready paint, but it's not very good. Don't put it in your airbrush. They'll never show you that. However, now, if you look at YouTube and you look at some really, really good Warhammer or wargaming or whatever type painters, figure painters, that's where you'll gain that information. That's where they'll show you how to use an airbrush, how to use model color instead of Citadel, how to use Revell paint instead of Citadel or whatever. So it's all about that research, but everyone needs a starting point. Everyone needs a starting point. We're in a fortunate position because we've got decades and decades of messing around with plastic toys, you know, so we're quite fortunate. But to think back, everyone needs a starting point, you know.
But even so, after all these years of experience, I think figurine painters and figure painters are a special breed, aren't they? I'll never get to anything like what they can do.
It's a different
normal on its own.
Yeah, it's.
I'm just going back. So I was talking about paint colors and stuff, and I thought that when I did, is it the Aichi-Val from Airfix, the vintage classic?
The Aichi-Val. Yeah.
The Aichi-Val. I used dark yellow 2 from the Tamiya range because it looked closer to the color that they were on their box. Airfix, than the Humble version looked too light, and I was well chuffed because it actually looked, when I sprayed it this dark yellow 2 acrylic lacquer, I think it was. It was their LP range, lacquer paint range. Sprayed up, it was bang on to what was on the back of the box, if you know what I mean.
But this is what we were talking about with marketing, isn't it? Because they will never tell you to use a Tamiya paint.
Yeah. I can assure you that when Airfix release their lifeboat, their orange and blue will be wrong.
Yeah, because
my Outlaw paints are spot. I've got somebody who's building the. Was it the old? Is it the Shannon class? No, what's the first one?
Seven class.
He's bought the Outlaw paints to build that big one, and he emailed me back and he said that orange is sublime. He said that is absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
But they're not going to mix an orange. Humber's not going to mix an orange for the lifeboat. The orange for the bomb bug as well, isn't it? You know what I mean?
They will pick the closest one they have in the Humboldt range.
Yeah. I know Dale's texting me now. The orange will be correct.
But for example, here's a classic example. So this is the kit that I'm building for your group, Buildmaster. It's an Airfix Vintage Classic LVT. So the majority of these are sort of an olive drab type green.
Yeah.
But that's Outlaw Paint Size Can green.
Yeah.
So,
but
actually, once you start weathering it, fading it, and shading it, and everything else, does it look military green? Yes. Is it the actual olive drab that they used on? No. Do you know what I mean? But that's because I didn't need a starting point.
That's it.
I knew how that green would behave. I knew I was going to weather it. I knew I was going to fade it, etc., etc. So I didn't need that starting point. Whereas if that was the first kit I'd ever built, then I need the starting point of theirs telling me it's Humbrol or whatever.
What do Airfix recommend the Humbrol paint is? Like,
Matt 30. Matt 30. Every green military vehicle they sell in 76 scale is Matt 30.
Is it?
Yeah. Would you use Matt 30?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
would you use Matt 30 on anything military, Luke? Would you ever use that color on anything military?
No.
No.
No. But yeah, that's exactly what they recommend for that.
Matt 30, yeah.
Yeah. But if that was your first ever kit,
yeah,
you're going to brush paint it, then it's going to be green, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, they need that starting point. Yeah, we're in a fortunate position all these years on you.
I've got to build this for somebody, this striker.
Yeah.
And have you done this one? Have you?
No, but I know someone that has.
But
no, it's not bad. It's not bad.
If you look on the side of the box, the green they've used, if I was using Outlaw paint, the closest I've got is the German dark green.
Okay.
You
compare those images on the side of that box of the completed model and tell me how that green looks any different to that one.
Yeah.
It doesn't, does it? And that's our Oscam camouflage green.
So that comes back to the experience, to the research. If you actually go and look at a striker, images of a striker, they won't look anything like that box art. I can almost guarantee.
A classic one that always causes controversy. So modern British armour painted in that sand yellow colour.
Yeah.
Well, I can guarantee you park the same vehicle next to each other. So say, I don't know, a Snatch Land Rover. You park 2 Snatch Land Rovers next to each other in theatre, one is going to look very different to the other.
Yeah.
Because one might have been out in the sun longer.
Yeah.
One might have been undercover. One might have been overpainted from Northern Ireland olive drab. One might be brand new and painted over. So there's so much variation, which goes back to what you said, Miles. What they're doing is giving us a blank canvas.
Yeah.
What you then do with it is entirely up to you. You know,
as I said, I've never seen an accurate Vulcan when it comes to the camo on the top.
No.
To be honest, because I think people get bored of it as well. They try and get it inaccurate, then they overspray a little. Oh, bollocks, we'll just do that a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you paint a British Sherman, say a Sherman Firefly. So if you use, say 35th scale, so if you use the exact colour at 35th scale that they were painted in, it's going to look black.
You'd be wrong.
Yeah.
It's going to, because the colour is such a dark olive drab. That an olive drab
light doesn't work the same way on models as it does on 1-to-1. You have 35 times,
especially colours.
I've got Dale on the text deal, right? He just said the problem is, and I get what he's saying now, you are looking at a 4-color print. Print doesn't translate to paint, and that can vary. Also, yeah. So when you're looking at that on the paint charts on the back, sometimes you're looking at the paint vary. So you're not going to get accurate on the print, which I think is fair enough. So I think he's made a good point there, which I thought fair enough. You know, you can't. But I did it to the what I saw on the back. And then when I'm shown that,
doesn't it? It goes back to Alex's point earlier that from a manufacturer's point of view, that kit, for example, I've lost the box now, but they're not aiming that kit at me.
No,
they're not. What they're doing is doing that kit for like 10 quid and then giving people who've never put a kit together before, they're giving them a starting point. A MAT 30 is going to be a starting point for that individual who's going to brush paint that kit, and it's going to be green. If they provided no starting point at all, and that person, there's not many now, but there are still people out there that has no access to the internet. They live miles away from a public library. They don't know what color that was. They know nothing about that particular vehicle. They've seen that kit. They bought it. They need a starting point. Yeah. So the manufacturer has to provide them with one.
Yeah.
Is it accurate? Probably not.
Yeah. And then why not give them a recommended color, which will be Humbrol, because that's their brand. And
that's their brand.
But that's
why would you not?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, why bother with the Humbrol brand? Just have an Airfix brand and be done with it, because then you'll be recommended Airfix even more, like the rest.
But I mean, that's fine for starters. But I think when you get into your non-starter kit paints, when you're not supplying the paint, and you've got people who have got a little bit more, and again, not giving them, if you like, I don't want to say the correct, but let's use the term correct in parentheses, reference. It's just like, for example, like I think Humbrol do about 160 paints, plus or minus, might be 168, something like that. 168 shades, which sounds a lot, but that's for everything, right? If you think of Vallejo do over 550 different paints, and that's not including like all the mediums and varnishes and
color shifters and all that lot.
Because they're a paint company, so they can do all those different shades. Like Luke has there, what was it, 6 different shades?
5
for one color.
Yeah.
Because the paint company, they can do that. They're dedicated to that. So any manufacturer is never going to be able to approach that kind of accuracy, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, but that's where, isn't it? So I don't know. I'm not a retailer, but I would imagine there are people out there, a veteran, for example, that comes into your shop, never built a model before. Never built a model, but he or she kind of knows what sort of color that vehicle was because they've operated on it or whatever. That's where you come in, isn't it, as the retailer, and say, okay, so they're recommending matte 30. We all know it's not that color, but what I can do is show you these colors and tell you how to use them. But unfortunately now the retail sector is, you're very fortunate now in the UK to have that facility. And that's where this comes into its own, isn't it? YouTube, the internet, people doing build videos, all that stuff, because that's where people will gain that information from. Because sadly, modeling clubs now, physical modeling clubs, where you could speak to the guy sat next to it, like they're few and far between now.
But I think, manufacturers have a choice to make, right? I think about how they are viewed by, modelers who are coming in, existing modelers and everything. And again, I'll choose Italeri because they cite FS numbers. So I look favorably upon Italeri from that point of view, not so much on others, but because they are very open and honest about that, the paint choice and stuff. Whereas Revell, even ICM, Airfix, I wouldn't even consider taking their paint recommendations at all. And to the point where Revell and Humbrol, I just don't use their paints. So it's an active detractor.
You wouldn't use Humbrol to paint figures or anything like that? Because I'm not going to lie, I have used the Gen 2.
I haven't found a paint that Humbrol does better than somebody else.
Really?
And I've got so many different paints. So I've got a lot of what people call mini painter paints, like Chimera, Pro Acryl, a whole range of different stuff. ICM paints are superior in every single way to Humbrol for brush painting, I would say.
Okay.
For acrylics,
I've always used Humbrol. That's why I keep all the starter set pots. I've used them in cockpits, and we're using the hairy stick. I don't find Humbrol Gen 2 paints bad, as like they used to be on the old starter set ones. Crap. The new ones in the Gen 2 to hand brush, I think good enough. And the reason I say good enough is because on 1/72 scale, and even in 148, you don't see much in that cockpit anyway. It's mostly there just to colour in, isn't it? The most of my attention is on the outside of the
But that's why I say they've got a choice to make, because so that's fine for starters, right? So is that how Airfix want to be seen, or how Airfix want to present Humbrol as a brand? It's your starter set paint. It's your kind of kiddie paint that you then graduate on from.
I think that's what it's all about. I think that at the end of the day, the majority of people that start into building model kits will buy an Airfix kit and use the paints that are in the box. And because it's also a cheap path into the hobby. I know it's law, folklore now that mods kicked off at Humbrol at Airfix that day. I know people talk about it. I was asked somebody the other day at the model show saying, "Is it true that you kicked off at Humbrol and saying you used to get rid of the brand?" I said, "Yeah, I did." But also, Humbrol is run by two people. Well, you got Vallejo, AK. That's what they do. This is what they are. It's same with Jason at Outlaw Paint. He's not worried about buying in Sprue Cutters and making them Outlaw named and that. He's concentrating on what he does best, which is acrylic lacquer paint that he's now going to make into a brushable. I believe it's a brushable lacquer paint. That's what he does. AK, Mig Ammo. I think he come from another brand anyway, didn't he? Mig, what's he called? The ammo range. I think he came from a different brand and made up his own. But it's all, but these people are.
Nick Jimenez came from Vallejo, I think.
Vallejo, apparently. But they are focused on what they do. Paint. Humbrol is there as a subsidiary of Hornby, and they've got to cover all the range. So that's why you got the railway, you've got everything else. So when you got these manufacturers that can do this, I totally get why Tallery are doing that FS range, but now they're the FS numbers. But when they're getting in deep with Vallejo now, because all their paints are Vallejo, aren't they, Tallery? I reckon that maybe in the future they'll dump the FS numbers and just stick to what Vallejo want in
I think Moz. I think Vallejo have got the FS numbers on the paint pots.
Have they?
Yes.
Oh right, fair enough. I'll shut my mouth then on that.
They have, yeah. So
Okay.
there you
So
go. There's
what's
part of model air, and it tells me at the bottom. So it gives you the model air code at the top, and it tells me at the bottom the RLM code.
Really? Okay.
Or this one's got the British Standard colour. BS 450.
BS number.
It sort of goes back to last week, though, then, Moss, doesn't it? About, should model companies just concentrate a bit more on what they're really good at, making models, and not, potentially tarnish their reputation or put themselves into a certain box. We criticize a lot of people who think that who say Airfix are just like for beginners or they're like baby kits kind of thing, because the whole starter range and stuff. And that kind of is a view that they've kind of adopted with making it very easy for people to get in. But that kind of then doesn't represent what they're doing as a company. It doesn't represent the Sea King and the Gannet and the Bulldog and all these great kits that we're getting.
Yeah.
So is that detracting from what they're doing going forward? Whereas other companies aren't getting that image. I mean, Revell's image is dirt anyway, so it doesn't matter what they do with paint.
Yeah, and I think it depends a lot on the approach of the individual modeler. So you said there, Moss, in a cockpit, it's almost, for you, it's almost like colouring in.
Yeah.
So does it matter, really, the quality of the paint that you're using, the techniques that you're using inside that cockpit? Whereas for me, I've just spent 2 days building the cockpit of a 48 Airfix Spitfire. With all the chipping, all the aftermarket, can I see any of it now? I've buttoned up the fuselage? Very little.
Yeah.
Very little. But to me, that's my enjoyment of that build, is to get that cockpit as detailed and looking as good as I possibly can. So therefore, if I'm spending £30 on aftermarket for that cockpit, I'm not going to use what I would term inferior paint.
48 scale Airfix Spitfire.
Say again?
48 scale Airfix Spitfire.
Yeah.
Who are you, and what have the aliens done with Luke Carswell?
Well, because I made a really stupid suggestion in the group of doing because it's 100-year anniversary of the Canadian Air Force, of doing like a buddy build. And Airfix did this particular mark of Spitfire in a Canadian scheme in 1945, and I was like, yeah, that's the one I want to do. And all that made me pick that one is because it's got a yellow spinner, and I think yellow against the two-tone British RAF camo just looks nice. That was it. There was no science attached to that at all. I like the yellow bit.
That's my model. If it looks cool, flips my switch.
Yeah, that was it. But would I use Humbrol yellow? Absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, just going back to the instructions. Sorry, I
say Outdoor Paints yellow is amazing. Gorgeous.
Shut up.
Even Scale Model Magazine, even Airfix Scale Magazine said the yellow is perfect.
The pigment density is really good. It's really good.
Obvious, yeah.
But just going back to instructions, so Frog used to do really, I mean, their instructions I think were way ahead of their time, and they still look decent today. But they had a little section at the beginning which actually showed different modeling techniques. So it showed, much in the way that the Airfix bit did there. But it had, putting the decals in. It had, I think it suggested using elastic bands to hold your kits together. So very 1970s. But one of the things it had was like cutting off, half of your brush to use stippling techniques. Which, if you think actually is a fairly advanced technique to put in a standard. It would be great, I think, if Airfix or other companies did some of that, more on the technique side. And especially now, I think, you could link that easily with QR codes to web pages to actually show videos of people doing that, to actually help build. There we go. Perfect.
Wow.
I think manufacturers, an ICM, Clear Prop are starting to do it, are stepping up to get more into embracing technology. And I think mainstream manufacturers could do with stepping up as well and doing more of that and becoming more of that. Like Luke said, we don't have access necessarily. And the US, I guess, is a great example because of the massive physical distances of local clubs and things. So could the manufacturers take on more of that mantle like they were in the 60s and 70s, that kind of trusted advisor,
Was that a piece of Pariahus that Mr. Parker was holding up?
That was an Airfix. That was an Airfix instruction
It
manual.
looked so old. It looked like a piece of Egyptian hieroglyphic paper.
Yeah.
No, it was actually a 1972 Frog Barracuda instruction.
Oh, Frog Barracuda, was it?
Yeah.
Ancient papyrus, definitely.
Papyrus, yeah.
Yes, it's a cost thing, isn't it? So let's take the Airfix Seeking or the Airfix 24 scale Spitfire, the new one. Fantastic product. However, there hasn't been anything from Airfix, technique guides, or anything like that. Now, if they employed or commissioned someone like, I don't know, Plasmo to do, yes, go on, mate.
Just going to say that's Airfix don't do that. But got agreement with Airfix Model Magazine, so like Stu Phone and that do those technique guides.
Yeah, but Airfix Model Magazine isn't Airfix, is it? It's Key Publishing.
It's not,
and it's behind a paywall.
But they won't do that because they licensed out the Airfix name to the likes of that publishing magazine. And they do regularly. I've got one of his books.
But what we're saying is that if manufacturers went to some of these, real high-profile builders that could show techniques, could show how you can turn that kit into something really, really special, and did it in a very visual medium where you could build along with it. We've all read build articles. It doesn't necessarily, it's not the same medium as watching Plasmo put a kit together. It's not the same medium as watching Night Shift do armor or do chipping or whatever. Yeah, but again, straight away, basic guide to modeling.
Yeah.
I don't want a basic guide. What I want is real in-depth. But there's a massive cost implication. Massive. And at some point, these modelers, if that kit's any good, they'll pick it up at some point. Do you know what I mean?
But I'm going to go against this because us YouTubers would like Airfix to give us the kits and build them for us, and then people can come onto YouTube and watch us build an Airfix kit. Why would Airfix employ somebody or invest in somebody like that when they're already doing it already?
Because employing, as good as we all are, and as much as I would love for Airfix to direct all of its traffic to me. I'm not Airfix. I don't have their authority. I don't have, I can't speak for them. Whereas if they've got somebody in-house, they've got a lot of social media people.
Yeah, but they have a
social media person that can model.
They do have somebody that does model on their Airfix channel. Jeff Hopkins, he does a lot for Airfix. You've got the other guy who does all the start sets,
John.
Yeah. So, but
Damien as well, he builds kits too, doesn't he?
Yeah. And this one came out.
But they're not doing it in any systematic way, or they're not doing it in a partnership way or an instructive way.
I don't know any manufacturer that is. Really?
No, but I think that is the next step, right? Some manufacturers are starting to do it. ICM are starting to do build stuff. They're doing build stuff of all their recent stuff. They've been doing little build things, painting bits. It's small, and I just don't see a time when all manufacturers aren't doing something similar. You know?
Yeah, and I think the difference is really, I mean, like you say, Airfix, Tamiya, ICM, whoever, they've got the authority, haven't they? They're the go-to. So if they did that, then people are going to follow that.
Yeah.
They are. But unfortunately, the cost for the manufacturer is astronomical. I would hate to think how much Plasma would charge to commission build for a manufacturer, not necessarily Airfix, could be anyone. Commission build and produce a build series.
You wouldn't. I mean, if it was a manufacturer, you wouldn't do it. You would employ somebody.
Yeah,
you would have somebody full-time job. This is what you do.
Yeah, this is what you do. You're our pro builder. Yeah. Very similar to like Games Workshop do with their heavy metal team.
Exactly.
Well,
You know?
as I said, I think Airfix are more reliant on us YouTubers to get the message out there. And like I said, you know, I'm not trusted because everybody classes me as an Airfix fanboy. But like for instance, Nigel, you know, people say, you know, he tells it how it is, and that's it, you know.
But that's a different thing, isn't it? I mean, people come to us. I mean, people know that if they come to my channel, I will give them an honest appraisal of an Airfix kit. If I say it's good, if I think it's good, I'll say it's good. If I think they've fucked up, I'll say I think they've fucked up on this one. So they know they'll get that honesty. They know they're not paid shills or whatever. The same for all of you. You know, you all get that different flavor from your audience because that's why they're your audience. But that isn't the same as the manufacturer. You know, as we said, you know, it's not the authority, and it's not why you would go to a manufacturer to watch their video. You wouldn't go for an independent opinion. You would go for a particular technique or how they've done it, and they could throw in all sorts of stuff. They could have tips from the designer and, you know, why they've done things in a certain way, blah blah blah. You know, but I think that's a space that could come into its fore in the next few years in instructions. You know, linking that in. We've started to see it, as I say, with ClearProp, with ICM, putting QR codes, linking to YouTube, all that kind of stuff. I can only see that that's going to increase.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough then. As I said, I know that they were giving out the basic guide to modelling, reduced rate, with particular model kits, so that if you wanted this Stu phones, but which can I recommend is fabulous. I think Stu's done an immense job in this book. Before then, you had Jonathan Mox, who designs the decals for Airfix. He did this one, the Airfix book. Last time I looked, somebody had this up for 60 quid on eBay. There's not that many around. But another phenomenally good well-written book. Both are excellent. If you ever see them in your local second-hand bookshop, pick them up because they are gold. You know, they are full of really good. And you know, I think they do have an in-house guy who does the starter sets. They've got in-house builders or people that are linked to Airfix that build. Airfix Model World, they get the kits before anybody else do, and they dish them out to the guys there at the magazine to get them done, built up. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think Airfix are relying on us, because why would they want to spend out so much money on employing somebody to do that? You know, just rely on us. If we want to, you know, there's loads of videos out there. The subscriber means bugger all. I've learned bits from beginners, you know, doing with 100 subscribers. I've gone
always
to always find a little tip or something from what they've done, you know. As I said, I think all the manufacturers, I think they've realised that YouTube is a really good platform and Instagram's a really good platform, and that's why they engage with us to ask questions and stuff. So
it is a good platform, but I mean, for instance, you know, Airfix have done their own unboxing videos and stuff. I think that's wasted money, right? So why I would never go to a manufacturer for an unboxing, because they're always going to show it in a biased light because they're making it. I would always go to a YouTuber, one that I trust, you know, probably one of the people on the screen.
You'll never see a manufacturer doing an unboxing that has a short shot. they're going to find the best thing that they have.
Exactly.
Can I just also
it's
say,
an independent review. That's what YouTube gives you. That's what all of we give is we're independent, so people will trust us because we haven't been paid.
As you've seen, I've got, I was joking about this because I said, have I got the Phil Flory curse? Because there was a time when Phil would open up an Airfix kit and there'd be something wrong in it, and now it's me.
I think I've got that one, Moss. I think it's
everything, but yeah, going back, Airfix, those kits would be perfect anyway because they're the samples that they've unboxed. They get, I think they get 8 sent over. So they're the samples of them, so there shouldn't be a problem when they're just doing it for content and pushing things out there. We do the same, and I find it a privilege, to be honest, that a manufacturer would send me a kit to review. But on that flip side, so that you all realise, is that when I review a kit, these are what I've bought. I buy these kits. I've been sent kits by Airfix, not going to lie. But I've unless I say in the video that they've sent me this, like the Sea King. I didn't review the Sea King, if you all noticed, because they gave it to me. I didn't do the Messerschmitt 410 because they gave it to me, but there will be video builds on my channel from when they give me that kit. So, but every kit that I review, I've paid for. Or there's 2 arrived and I've paid for 1, if you know what I mean. So I make sure I put it in there. So
I mean, we all want the perfect world, don't we? We all want that. I would love for Airfix, Tamiya, ICM, Qatari, all the manufacturers to have a pro builder that's going to teach me every single advanced technique and tell me exactly what products they've used and how they've used them, and we would all love that. However, there's always that balance of is it financially viable for that manufacturer to do that? Probably not. And now anyone with a smartphone can put a video on the internet, and some are good, some are not so good. And it's down to us as the consumers of that content to make a decision as to what we take on board and what we don't.
I can assure you, though, one last point is that when Airfix release a video and you see an advertising, say like the planes, and they look superb, they're not Humble Paints.
No, of course they're not. Of course they're not.
No.
The same as I was saying earlier about you see the box art on a Warhammer kit, for example. Oh, we brush painted this. No, you haven't.
Yeah.
No, you haven't.
We brush painted it with these 6 paints. It's like bullshit.
Those 6 paints, they see 7 colors. So
yeah. I mean the company that I can see that would do it, Luke, to be honest, is Tamiya. And the reason I say that is, having worked for Japanese companies for a long time, it's control. Right? Japanese companies like in-house control, and if you're doing that, you can control your output. If you have somebody, and they have the range to do it, right? They got the paints, they got the weathering stuff. You could do Tamiya kit with purely Tamiya stuff and show all that. I can see them going along that, and
maybe. And it would be
the
great
thing is, when one company does it, it's then. Okay, commercially, you have to make a decision. Do you not do it and remain behind, or do you play the game? So as soon as somebody starts doing it, other people will also do it, or they'll have different strategies. Like Revell will probably just, keep selling stuff cheap.
Adrian just said, of my 10 Airfix builds so far, 4 had short shots. All I can say to folks, and I mean this right up, if you have short shots in your kit, email Airfix customer service, and make sure you put for attention of Dale. If he has all this information, he can go back and say, look, this is what's happening. And then they can then make a decision. Give them the ammunition to make a decision. That's all I'm going to say. If you're getting short shot, like I said, I didn't get short shot on the Bulldog, but the plastic had gouges in it. I had that Concorde, and it looked like it had been stepped on in the factory because it was dirty, like it had been on the floor. You know, you can talk about these things, be honest about these things, because they know there's a problem. Of course, they know there's a problem there. Of course, they know there's a problem. When I do a video and I see this and I say it, there's a problem. And as I said, Airfix are doing so well with the designers designing these kits. The tooling's pretty spot on, most of it. The reality is, it's the QC that's letting the company down.
Yeah.
And the problem is, because it's outsourced, and I mean it, I think they should look in Poland. I think they should come back and say, right.
I think if there was an award for the best comeback manufacturer, Airfix have got to be there.
Yeah.
Because some of their recent, and that's down to Dale, that's down to their designers. It's down to, like, they are the comeback kings.
Yeah.
Because for years and years and years, I wouldn't touch an Airfix kit. Would not touch one. Now, in the last 12 months, I think I've built 4 or 5. You know, so yeah, they are the comeback kings, and if they could just get that QC sorted out.
Darryl Masters, Eric Starr said, if you have issues with Airfix, then speak with your wallet. Simple, they'll eventually figure it out. No, we don't want the companies to go bang, but what we want, because it costs them money to send you the replacement part. If they're having to fork out money, you're still going to have a fantastic model to build. You have to wait a week to get your spare part. But they are insistent on, then they'll send it to you free of charge. If that keeps happening, I said, the guy in India, whoever runs that manufacturing company in India, needs a good old bitch slap and say, look, you're fucking up our reputation. And the thing is, though, it's like,
hold on, Will Smith. Come on.
Yeah.
Ever thought you could require a career in public relations, Muzz?
I don't give a shit.
If Airfix doesn't know what they're doing wrong, they can't fix it. Like, if you go see a from them, there's no way that they know what they're doing wrong to fix. If you
it needs to be made visible.
And email them and say, hey, I'm not buying your stuff because I just had this issue with this kit. Airfix now knows what's to fix. And that's not limited to Airfix. Do that with Tamiya, do that with Hasegawa, do that with any company, Edward, whoever. The only way they're going to get better if they know exactly what it is they're doing wrong. The only way they're going to know is if you tell them.
It's like if you buy a brand new car, right, and there's something wrong with it, you don't just say, "Oh, I'm never buying Toyota again," and let it stand there. You take it back to the garage, don't you? If Airfix don't know that there's an issue with a kit that you've bought, they can't do anything about it.
Exactly, and you can equate that to every area of life. Information is power. If the manufacturer doesn't know there's an issue, they can't raise that issue. They can't fix it.
Yeah.
If they know there's an issue and then they choose, for whether that be a financial reason or whatever, not to do anything about it, then that's a commercial decision on their behalf. However, if they don't know, they can't put it right, can they? For example, in my area of work, there are lots of problems and things do go wrong occasionally. But if we don't know things are going wrong, then we can't put it right.
If you know, like it's been suggested here, when you get an Airfix kit, don't just whack it in your stash for it to collect dust. Open it up, check it, and make sure that it's okay.
And you should do that. You should do that with everything.
I'd even go so much as to actually look at the sprues with the instructions, but that's with any kit anyway, isn't it? Whether it's Tamiya or I've had short on Revell before, but within 3 days I've had something come through the post. That's how
a classic example of that. A classic example of that. A few years ago, Rifle Models, which is considered, a premium company and for armor, and they released a challenge to. And it was a highly anticipated release because no one had ever done that version of a Challenger 2 before. etc., etc., etc. I think it's something like 40% of the kits that people bought were missing the upper hull. It just wasn't in there, which that's quite important on a tank. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what would happen is, because people didn't check their kit when they bought it, and then 2-3 years down the line, they then thought, "Oh, I'll build that. Oh, I've got no upper hull." Well, then you've got a problem then, because proof of purchase and all that stuff 3 years down the line you might not have. Every kit you get, doesn't matter the manufacturer, check it at the time before you put it in the stash where it's going to sit for 10 years. Because if there's an issue, you can sort it out there, and then 5-6 years down the line, you're going to struggle.
Yep,
that's it. You know,
I mean, I'll admit to opening up kits while sitting in the car on the way home with them because I want to do what's inside. So
hopefully not while driving, Fenris.
Yes.
No. It's a family trip. Yeah.
I'm terrible. When I open up every single new kit I get, because I want to bloody see inside it. You know, I look at every kit that I get. I look at the instructions and then decide just to, build it or put it in the stash. But as I said, the only I say is quite openly, Airfix are doing everything right, apart from the company they've outsourced the tooling to. They're fucking it up for them, and if I see the guy, I'll give him the humble rant. Say, it's your fault. You can't keep abreast of what your staff's doing. You're not having people double check their fucking work. In the end, it's us lot that end up going back to Airfix saying the quality control is, sorted out. And if that means you lose a tool, then we'll send it all to Poland and get it done there. Fuck yous. Fuck off.
I mean, Powell has made a comment in there. Why don't YouTubers tell their viewers not to buy a single Airfix? I would never tell my subscribers.
No. If you think about it, when there's a short shot, it's like 2% of the kit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and they've got them in stock there. I bet they've got loads of parts. When they have a short shot, we got a lot of problem here. You better get these sent over quick. And then they got less to sell them because they're cutting that part off to give to you.
Yeah, and for example, like I say, I've avoided Airfix for years. But now, if anyone asks me, so I built the Skytrain recently. I built the RFP 51. I'm now building the Spitfire. I'm building the Vintage Classic. If anyone asks me about those kits, as far as I'm concerned, it's a yes. Go for it. They're good kits. They're good kits. And when I have had an issue, I had one issue with the Skytrain, and it was missing a couple of very small radio antennas that sit on the front of the Skytrain underneath the cockpit canopy. And it was just missing where they broke. It was a kit that was years old. I contacted Airfix customer service, and within 4 working days, that sprue had arrived.
Yeah.
Well, you can't get any better than that. But that's my experience of it. So I'm never going to turn around and say, oh, well, Airfix have got a quality control issue, so don't buy anything Airfix. Absolutely not. Absolutely.
No, I mean, I see where, Ravel, you've obviously had a very frustrating experience with Airfix. And I absolutely get why you wouldn't want to buy more Airfix in the future. And if that's your decision, then that is the market speaking, right? But you should let them know. You should definitely say, look, I've bought 10 kits. 4 of them have had issues. I'm not going to buy more kits from you until you start this. So tell them, because otherwise, what would they think? If I was in Dell's position, I'd just like, we did this release. Nobody's buying it. Was it just the wrong thing? Should we build something else? We won't make aircraft so much. We'll do ships or something. They need to have some sort of feedback. If they know, okay, it's because of the QC issues, then they can focus on that. But if we just all start buying Airfix will just go out of business, and that's not going to help anybody.
And as we keep telling everyone, at the moment, when I know there's issues, okay, with the plastic, but engineering, build, design, accuracy is 9 out of 10 from Airfix.
Yeah.
I can't say 10 out of 10. I'll say 9 out of 10.
I mean, but it's all down to experience, isn't it? So Pal said in the chat there, he's never had an Airfix kit that he hasn't had an issue with. Whereas from my point of view, every single Airfix kit that I've built so far, I've not had one issue.
Yeah.
And that's the boat I'm in, and I would like to highlight that it's not just an Airfix thing. Like, I love Tamiya. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Tamiya fanboy, but they're one of my highest rated companies. I've had a lot of Tamiya that have had very bad detail fuzziness, very bad flash of all things.
Yeah,
is that going to make me audit? I mean, most of the Tamiya I've built in the last 2 years has had some flaw or another, whereas Airfix has actually had less of an issue with that. Does that mean I'm going to stop building either one of them?
No.
Not at all. And again, if you don't let the manufacturers know, they have no idea what's wrong. They don't know, is it the subject? Is it we released it at a bad time? Is it what is the problem? And so all we're going to see is we're just going to see companies tank and good people lose their jobs if you don't tell them what the problem is. And I've sent my fair share of emails to them. I've sent them to Bandai. I've sent emails to all sorts of companies. Because that's.
Can I add something to what Luke was saying before about not, if you don't let these companies. Yeah. Most model companies, they build models in production runs. So if you put a new model you bought in your stash, you don't go and pick it up and check it for 2 or 3 years. The chances of getting spares for that kit is nil.
Yeah.
If you do it straight away, they usually produce some spares for that reason.
Yeah.
I was that guy who said that every time he's bought a Tamiya kit or an Airfix kit, he's had issues. You're not going to tell me that every time you bought a Tamiya kit, those decals have been absolutely superb and they've gone down like butter on bread. Because I don't believe that, because I've had Tamiya kits and the decals have been shockingly shite. Yeah. So you've got two methods in the madness here. Like, you've got Airfix that give you, and they knew that their decals. That was one of the best decision they ever did back in 2000, or was it 2009, whatever it was. We're going to sell kits now with cartographed. We know that we can't make them. We're going to get cartographed to do our decals because we know they're going to be bang on the butt every time you get. So it's like you see the things that they've changed, like with fitment of kits. They knew there was issue with fitments of kits, with the Humbro Hella. Now they've looked at how to make those kits fit better, sub assemblies, new techniques, on using. And they don't use side molding because, according to Chris, it's one of the most expensive ways to manufacture a plastic part, and it's the first point of failure when the part goes wrong. Is side molding. So they try not to use side molding. They rather build it up in pieces. I get that. But but the decals are fine, instruction manuals are good, everything's good apart from the manufacturer isn't whipping ass when they and they've got stickers on the back, so they damn well know who was on that machine when that range was done. So they that's what sackable offence. You keep doing it, you're gone.
Well, but if Airfix do end up moving their tooling to Poland, Moss, then we'll all be on you, Pavel. If there's any QC issues, we'll ask you to go down to the factory.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go and tell them.
All I'm saying is that you got people who won't buy Edard because they don't like their decals. Whatever it is. But that there's always an option. There's always a workaround. So if your kit has got a short shot, you can contact Hormick, or even take it back to your model shop and say this has got a short shot, and they can get another kit in for you. There's always these options available to people. So whatever it is, it's what's it saying? I have the same gouge as Moz in the same place. There must be something going on. I don't know what that means. Sorry. The only issue I've had
scratches in them.
Oh, yeah, he's got the same gouge, has he? And the same gouge in it. Could be a bit of dirt on there or something's catching. I don't know. The only issue I've ever had with Airfix kit for several years is one sprue on the vintage plastic tank transporter. They had one sprue that looked as though it'd been in the oven for a week. Yeah, that happened. But yeah, all I'm going to say is that if you find an issue, you got a problem, there's always a workaround to it. Whichever manufacturer you are, some are better than others. Revell, solid, but then they've got dedicated people in their countries. Revell are quite broad. Tamiya's the same. If I think Sully got his in 4 days, a new decal sheet in 4
Wow.
days. So yeah, I think some manufacturing got issues, and we all know that when it comes to plastic, India's it's got issues, but you'll always find. And also, I won't particularly buy Thunder models or mini art kits because there's too much photo etch in them. I want the choice of plastic over photo etch.
Yeah, and that's all down to, I don't know, personal preference. Is there a reason I buy Kia instead of Hyundai? Absolutely, there is.
Yeah.
But then there's other people that will buy Hyundai instead of Kia.
Yeah.
Because it's personal preference. I love mini art kits. I love photo etch. Do you know what I mean? It's personal choice, isn't it? At the end of the day. But I think to blanket statement, any manufacturer, every kit, there's an issue. No, that's not the case. It isn't the case. I've got one on the bench right now, and there's no issue with that kit. The last one I built, there was no issue. The one before that, there was no issue. The one before that, there was no issue. And I know the decals are going to be good because they're cartographed, and I know the instructions are going to be good.
Yeah.
Having said that, I mean, it is up to the manufacturer to try and fix those issues, because otherwise that's the reputation they build, in the same way that British Leyland had a certain reputation for a certain reason, There's
Friday afternoon
British Leyland cars that weren't actually good. They were just infrequent.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
what happened to them?
I'm gonna end on 2 points. Firstly, I've never seen a short shot on a Nerf gun. All right. It's manufactured in the same factory. These Airfix kits are manufactured in the Nerf gun. The same company who makes the Nerf guns for Hasbro. Yeah. I've never seen a short shot on one of them bloody things. So they can do it right if they want to. I'm going to do a bit of self-promotion now, folks. So sorry about this, but I think I'm allowed to. If you go on to outlawpaints.com, we have the Lifeboat range in stock.
Nice.
Got them specially. Me and Jason, a few text messages, a few emails, sent them over the correct BS numbers for these colours that the Lifeboat range uses. Now, I'll be honest with you, the bold yellow is a little bit off of the striped yellow you get down the side of the Lifeboat. But on the flip side, we've tried to do it so that if you do get the figures, that yellow will do their uniforms. Okay, so the overall coats and the waterproofs that they wear, it's in between. The yellow's so between, and we thought, bugger it, we'll just do this bold yellow. It does come up really nice against the blue. If you want to use a decal and you want to spray that yellow in, you can. But that is bang on for their new I think it's Helly Hansen. I think they use now for their uniform. But you've got the light orange, which is BS557, the signal red, which is BS537, the blue is a BS105, and then you've got the dark apple tree grey and the light aircraft grey, and that's basically for your decks. And inside the Lifeboat, so if you want to get in deep. So those are the 6 colours. Obviously, you need a black as well, but any old black will do. But they're all available on the website now. I've got 18 bottles each left. We can get more shipped over. We've done them at $6.99. And I say, I paid nearly £200. Nearly £200 to get these range in, because I know that we needed to get them in, because the Lifeboat range is happening soon. So if you want outdoor paints, also the shop's live anyway. I've got military paint coming over this week. I've put in a massive order to fill up our UK military range and our US range. So that should all be complete in stock. I've got a lot of colours in, but not all the colours, if you know what I mean. So, but yeah, feel free to have a look at the website outlawpaints.co.uk or outlawpaints.uk and order your paints there if you if you want Lockable colours. All right, so there you go. That's my little bit because I'm trying to sell the paints. The more I sell, the more I can put in another order. So yeah, there you
They
go.
are
That's
wonderful, wonderful paints. I absolutely love Outlaw Paints.
Yeah.
And,
And if anybody asks, we are looking at doing Europe. We're just trying to sort out the tax advantages and disadvantages of doing Europe. But I've been told, we had a chat with the web developer, and he said all you've got to do is buy an EU domain, and I can flip that site to an EU domain and put it all in euros if you want to. But we're trying to work out tax, because we're not in Europe anymore, so there is import and export tax. It could be we ship it to you, and when it gets here, you've got to pay the extra tax on it. But it's all up in the air at the minute, so we could be hitting Europe.
They are fantastic. There's no two ways about it. And if any, with this self-promotion, but if anyone wants to see them used in anger by someone that's not used them before, go to Black Rifle Model Works on YouTube, look at the last 2 videos, and I show them spraying straight out the bottle on a 3-tone camo scheme. There's not many paints you can do that with.
No. So don't look back in anger. You heard Luke say, all right?
Yeah, well, I'm doing a whole bunch of videos on paint, as people will know, recently.
Yes.
And I've got one coming out on I've got 2 actually on Outlaw Paints coming out soon. One of which is a 109, which was built, and then I painted and masked it with Outlaw in half an hour, including all the masking.
Yeah.
So sprayed, masked, sprayed again, no lift. It's. I mean, I don't know a paint that you could do that with other than Outlaw. So fantastic.
I did the same with the Stuka.
Yeah, you said you was for it, John.
That was all Outlaw.
Yeah. As I said, you need an agent in EU that case, or at least an EOR. I have got an EORI registration anyway. No, we haven't. No, we ain't got the EORI. It's the other one that we've got for the importing license. We've got the EORI is the one that I need to look at because they want to know what packaging you're going to send it in because they're going to charge you to get rid of that packaging. Come on. That's why we pay cancel tax for. You know what I mean?
I don't envy you, boss. I used to deal with the ORI codes, and it's good luck.
You've got to pay somebody, but we can flip it. England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Isles of Man, Jersey, Guernsey, Sark. We all that. Even Ireland, we can do Ireland because Ireland's under the same tariffs as. We got to put a CN22 on there. Is it CN22 is the code? This form. But yeah, we can ship to Ireland as well. So, but it's there. Have a look, see what you want, and if you're a railway modeler, let me know because they tell us there for the British Rail is quite big, but don't buy maroon until I get them in on Thursday. So, no, don't buy brown because it's maroon at the moment. They're coming in on Thursday. Folks, it's been an absolutely brilliant discussion tonight. Starting off, we've done 2 hours on our miseries. So, but there's a lot of positives and a lot. There's a lot more positives than negatives. So come away, and it's really good. Thanks all for joining me tonight. Thank you all in the chat. I've tried to jump in and put comments up as I go. I need another moderator really to help me put these comments on the screen. So we'll look into that this week. But again, thanks all for Monday night. It's 10 past. We've gone on a bit longer, 2 hours and 8 minutes tonight. But thanks all for joining, and we'll see you all next week. Have a good week, folks. We'll see you then. Take care. And bye-bye.
See you later, folks. Bye-bye.